one who knows the exit code. The notification sound on my phone has always been a sharp, familiar chirp, but tonight, it felt like a gunshot in a library. I was sitting at the kitchen island, nursing a lukewarm coffee, when my screen lit up with a flood of activity. It was the Miller clan, our family group chat, the digital hub where my mother posted inspirational quotes about cherishing every moment. My aunt shared questionable health advice, and my brother, David, usually sent memes that weren't funny. But tonight, there were no memes. There was just a link, a Dropbox folder, shared by an anonymous burner account that had been silently added to the group 10 minutes prior. I tapped the link, my thumb hovering for a second, a strange, prickling sensation crawling up the back of my neck. I clicked. The folder contained hundreds of screenshots. They weren't from our family chat, they were transcripts. Private, encrypted conversations between my father, my mother, and our family lawyer. My heart hammered against my ribs as I started reading, the cold kitchen air suddenly feeling like a suffocating shroud. I scrolled through dates, some from 5 years ago, some from yesterday. As the reality of the first few messages settled in, the glass of water next to me shattered as my hand trembled and swept it off the counter. My father, the man who preached about honesty every Sunday dinner, was meticulously planning a scenario that would leave my sister and me with nothing. But that wasn't even the worst part. There were photos, grainy and dated, of a property I didn't recognize and a name I'd never heard whispered in our house. "The debt is paid," my mother had written in a message dated last Thursday, but she knows about the other one. I stopped breathing. My eyes darted to the top of the screen. A new message had just appeared in the group chat from my aunt, usually the most talkative person in the family. It was a single, terrifying line of text. "Who added this account? And why is everyone's bank account showing a zero balance?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. I stood up, my chair screeching against the hardwood floor, and grabbed my coat, ready to bolt for the car. But before I could reach the door, the front porch light flickered and died, plunging the driveway into total darkness. My phone vibrated violently, a constant stream of notifications now, dozens of messages a second, all of them panicked, all of them angry. I glanced down one last time before stuffing it into my pocket, and my blood turned to ice. A photo had just been uploaded to the chat, a photo taken from inside my own hallway, looking out into my kitchen, time-stamped exactly 3 seconds ago. I spun around, my back hitting the door, the breath trapped in my throat. The house was dead silent, but the air felt heavy, charged with the scent of ozone and something metallic, like copper. I reached for the light switch, but the toggle was unresponsive. From the shadows of the hallway I had just been standing in, I heard a soft, rhythmic clicking, the exact sound of my mother's favorite pen when she was nervous. Then, a voice that sounded like hers, but layered with a strange, synthesized distortion, whispered from the darkness behind me. "You were never supposed to look at the folder, darling." I pressed my back against the door, my heart performing a frantic, irregular rhythm against my ribs. The voice, my mother's voice, yet fundamentally wrong, was coming from the hallway, just inches away. I fumbled for my phone, the screen casting a pale, sickly light onto the hardwood. The group chat was spiraling into chaos. My brother, David, was sending frantic voice notes, his tone shifting from confusion to high-pitched, guttural screaming. I didn't dare listen to them. The silence in the room was too heavy, a predatory weight that made every muscle in my body lock up. "Mom?" I rasped, my voice barely a tremor in the darkness. "What is going on? What is that folder?" The clicking of the pen stopped. There was a pause, so profound that I could hear the distant hum of the refrigerator and the frantic, rhythmic ticking of the antique grandfather clock in the foyer. Then, the voice drifted out again, not from the hallway anymore, but from directly behind my left ear, soft as a dying breath. "The folder isn't a leak, honey. It's a ledger. And you've just audited the books." I swung around, my phone's flashlight beam cutting through the gloom, but there was nothing there. just the empty, cavernous throat of the hallway and the familiar silhouettes of the coat rack and the hallway mirror. I panted, my eyes darting wildly. I had to get out. I grabbed the door handle, twisting it with both hands, but the mechanism held firm. It wasn't locked. It was fused. The brass felt oddly warm, vibrating with a low-frequency hum that vibrated through my bones and made my teeth ache. My phone erupted again. A new message from my father. It was a single, grainy video file. I clicked it, my hands shaking so violently that I almost dropped the device. The video was a live feed, a security camera angle I hadn't seen before. It showed the interior of the very room I was standing in, but from a bird's-eye view. On the screen, I could see myself, huddled by the door. And standing directly behind me, mere inches away, was a tall, obscured figure dressed in a charcoal gray suit that seemed to absorb the light around it. The figure was holding a heavy, clinical-looking syringe. I froze. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. I watched the screen, watching the reflection of my own terror as the figure in the suit began to raise its arm. On the video, the figure's head tilted, its movements jerky and artificial, like a puppet pulled by strings. The group chat pinged again, a deluge of messages flooding in simultaneously. They weren't from my family anymore. The usernames had all changed to a sequence of numbers and symbols. Target identified, the chat read. Initiate containment protocol. Suddenly, the house began to groan. It wasn't the sound of settling foundations. It was the sound of metal groaning under immense pressure, as if the walls themselves were retracting. The ceiling lights didn't flicker back on. Instead, they began to glow with an intense ultraviolet hue, bathing the kitchen in a color that shouldn't exist. My skin prickled as the air ionized, the hair on my arms standing straight up. I knew then that I wasn't in my home. I wasn't even sure if this was a house at all anymore. I looked at the security feed one last time. The figure in the suit had vanished from behind me, but the back door, the one leading to the garage, had just swung open. Standing there, bathed in the blinding white glare of the garage floodlights, was my father. He looked exactly as he always did. Tucked-in shirt, silver watch, calm expression. But his eyes were entirely black, reflecting no light, like two ink-filled voids. He held a tablet in his hand, his thumb hovering over a red button, and he was staring directly into the camera lens, his lips curling into a smile that didn't reach his soulless, darkened eyes. "Don't worry," he mouthed, his voice manifesting as a text notification on my phone screen rather than a sound in the air. "The erasure process is painless, provided you don't fight the reset." He tapped the button. The floor beneath my feet suddenly dropped away, not like a trap door, but like a glitch in a video game, pixels of reality dissolving into white noise. As I plummeted into the void, my phone screen flashed one final, terrifying message from the group chat. All family members accounted for. Proceeding to delete reality. The sensation of falling wasn't a physical drop. It was a violent, sickening displacement of perspective. One moment I was staring at my father's ink-black eyes, and the next, I was suspended in a sterile, monochromatic void. There was no ground, no sky, just an endless grid of flickering, translucent lines that pulsed with the same cold, synthetic rhythm as the messages on my phone. My phone, still clutched in my white-knuckled grip, was the only source of light, and it was screaming. Error 404, identity not found, the chat scrolled rapidly. Data pruning in progress. I tried to scream, but the air here was thick, viscous, like liquid glass. I couldn't move my limbs, but I could feel them, or rather, I could feel them dissolving. The tips of my fingers were becoming translucent, fading into the static that defined this place. I looked down, and my chest felt light, hollowed out, as if my memories, the smell of my mother's baking, the sound of the ocean, the sting of a scraped knee, were being systematically scrubbed from my neural pathways. Suddenly, a massive, jagged rift tore through the grid ahead of me. Through the tear, I didn't see the world I knew. I saw a server room. It was vast, stretching into an infinite, freezing darkness, filled with towering obsidian monoliths that hummed with a sound so low it rattled my very marrow. Thousands of cables, thick as pythons, coiled from the ceiling like the tentacles of some mechanical leviathan, all leading to a central dais. And there, sitting in a chair made of cooling vents and wires, was my brother, David. Or at least, it looked like him. He was hooked up to a complex web of fiber optics, his eyes rolled back, his skin pale and shimmering with an artificial sheen. He wasn't breathing, but his fingers were dancing across a holographic interface. He was the one typing the messages. He was the one controlling the leak. "David!" I choked out, the sound vibrating in the air like a distorted broadcast. He didn't turn, he didn't blink, but his voice, cold and devoid of any brotherly affection, echoed from every direction at once. "You always were the sentimental one, Sarah. You kept the old photos, you kept the paper letters, you kept the data that made us vulnerable to the audit." "What are you talking about?" I gasped, my voice failing as my legs vanished into the encroaching white noise. "They're our parents. This is our life." "This was a simulation," he corrected, his voice flat, devoid of humanity. "We reached our capacity for generational trauma 3 weeks ago. The family was flagged for inefficiency. I'm just hitting the kill switch so we can be reallocated to a more profitable server. If you stop struggling, the pain of the deletion will be minimized." He tapped a key, and a wave of raw, digital agony slammed into me, white-hot and blinding. I felt my ego fracturing. The memory of my first birthday, the sting of my first heartbreak, the sound of my name, all being shredded into binary code. I was becoming nothing more than a line of defunct script. I knew I had seconds before I ceased to exist entirely. With the last ounce of my will, I focused on the phone in my hand, which was currently being integrated into the void. I didn't try to fight the deletion. I tried to subvert it. I forced my thumb to scroll back, past the ledger, past the blackmail, to the very beginning of the chat, to the hidden subdirectory I had accidentally stumbled upon when I first clicked the link. I hit forward. I didn't send it to the family. I didn't send it to the lawyer. I sent the entire folder, the ledger, the truth of this simulation, and the proof of David's treachery, to the one address that had been blocked since the day we were born. The address labeled Administrator Prime. David froze. The humming in the room spiked to a deafening shriek. He spun his chair around, his eyes wide and terrified, staring not at me, but at the horizon behind me. The grid began to shatter, giant cracks of blinding celestial light tearing through the ceiling of our digital cage. "What did you do?" he shrieked, his composure finally breaking. "You've just invited an unhandled exception into the kernel. We aren't being deleted anymore. We're being quarantined." The floor beneath us gave way entirely, and instead of white noise, I felt the cold, crushing sensation of an incoming system-wide purge. A massive, iron-like voice, resonant and terrifying, boomed from the sky above. "File corruption detected. Purge commencing. All instances of Miller Compa clan to be with me to get the great. A little, make sure that instances of Miller clan leadership are readin and finally cooling pernance. Discommencin, between Miller than instance." The fame the fuddlebit of an instance is, was open to computer than meccative any in diversity, but the first of the family is pointing. The floor of the link that I give them to when the demigrate purges the comments. The way to click the throw then breaker, we've made the perfect. These are their 21st years that beforth may believe that it campen. The hand other details and make sure that I may in this future. I willed between that the first of Miller clote to be settle, which is 116 years ago and has demanded someone may be. There's a few minutes, but they do to take a Roman American cinema, but a few way to leave from de transportment. Difference of the day was situated in the divisional feature. The future and make sure that I cut ma, and they didn't so important for him. The government order and the responsibility of this purchase well important. I lived it to infusual, and they could send other business of repurgin. I still meted the more power with in many. The feet met before my welt to leaven the way. Diverse of the way he made whatever completely red ship feeder. The McGrun experience for the form, and the difference pate were pair in the dreck. As the sky turned into a wall of roaring fire, I saw David reaching for me, his hand glitching and freezing in midair. "They're coming," he screamed. "They aren't deleting the file, they're coming to incinerate the hardware." The reality around us began to peel away like burning paper, revealing something standing on the other side, a massive, lidless eye, watching us from the absolute edge of existence. The eye was impossibly large, a swirling vortex of deep violet and scorched gold that seemed to swallow the very concept of space. As it fixed its gaze upon us, the sensation of gravity returned with a violent, crushing force. I slammed into something hard and metallic, a floor that wasn't a floor, but a cold, humming surface of dark steel. The simulation of my home was gone, stripped away to reveal the raw, terrifying architecture of the machine. David collapsed beside me, his digital form flickering like a dying fluorescent tube. The eye wasn't a biological organ. It was a massive sentient sensor array embedded in the ceiling of this infinite chamber. Every time it blinked, the surrounding reality shuddered. A sound emanated from the walls, a rhythmic, grinding noise, like the grinding of tectonic plates, as if the facility itself were reconfiguring to accommodate the breach I had caused. "You idiot," David gasped, clutching his chest as code bled from his fingers like black ink. "The administrator isn't a person. It's the purging algorithm. By sending that link, you didn't ask for help. You told the system exactly where the corruption was located. You've just marked us for total destruction." Before I could answer, the air ignited. A wave of searing, white-hot data